really cinematic. If you're here, Brandon, coming down. Anyone else who had anything to do with Masters? We have a couple more seats available, so come on down.
Also, there's a raffle for 2 seats over there.
Yeah. Who wants to go first? Larry, who was your favorite character to write for? Ramman. Scott, you got to bring back the line, in recent years. What was the one dream character you had that you kind of wanted to bring back? You created a character, actually.
I did. Yes. Mighty Spectre, who was a character that I actually entered in the 87 Creative Character Contest that never actually got, the winner photon never got made into the classics line. But I think for me, it really was the fact that we completed the entire vintage line in the classics collector line. It wasn't only one character, but the fact that over the course of 8-9 years of the line, through fan support, we did every single character released between 1982 and 1987 in the collector line, and no other toy line has done that. So that's
I love He-Man, right? I love Thunder Punch He-Man. Anyone remember Thunder Punch He-Man? A round of caps on the back, the twist action waist, and then you hear the explosive punch. Come on, that was it for me. What about you, man?
I like Hordak.
Hordak. Mike Nichols?
No, I have to say because of this, I like He-Man mostly because of that laugh. That laugh kills me. I have a cell from this hanging on my wall. I love that.
Anyone else? Brandon, what about you?
I love Skeletor. Frank Langella in the movie, I just remember him really, just the performance and so on.
We're still waiting for the Frank Langella action figure squad, by the way, or whoever's here from Mattel.
Yeah, I don't work for Mattel anymore, so you're not allowed to blame me for these things.
You guys gotta get on it. So.
We just did a poll at E-Man World about 3 weeks ago, and Card won the poll with 911 votes. Any Card fans out there? So hopefully Mattel does get the rights to make those movie characters. I know Gary Goddard would probably take that. So all right, my first question here, and this is for Corey and Roger. How did you guys first meet, and how did you end up making a documentary about He-Man and Masters of the Universe?
Well, we're geeks. That says it all right there. We grew up with this stuff. But how did we meet, Corey?
Roger was doing a movie that he was producing, and we met in the casting process. I'm an actor, and he cast me in the movie, and we ended up realizing we had a lot in common. We became friends, and we just started hanging out, writing strips, and just talking about stuff that we grew up liking. And He-Man kept coming up, and eventually Roger asked me if I had read Roger Sweet's book, and I hadn't, and it sort of went from there. Roger had a history of doing documentaries. He did a Ray Romano documentary. He's done Forey Ackerman documentary and so much other stuff. So I just thought, well, we're not making these scripts that we're writing, so nobody has done this idea yet, and this is an interesting story. So if we want to do something, why don't we just maybe do this?
We had no idea if these people would even. Return our phone calls, But we were kind of, as fans, we were curious. We were like, what really did happen, And I had read Roger's book. You didn't have any idea about who Roger or Mark, any of these people. So when I gave him the book and I saw the way he reacted, I'm like, see, there's something here, right? And by the way, there's been films, books, on anything and everything we grew up with, our generation at least, those of us who grew up in the 80s, but no one had done anything on, He-Man, and who really came up with it. So we started calling people up, and I think Roger got back to us right away. He said yes, and he lives in Seattle, so we flew to Seattle. And Corey, you can tell a little bit more on, spending some time with our dear Uncle Roger.
Roger is as you can see, he's
colorful.
He's colorful. He's a very interesting guy. But yeah, everybody opened their doors to us do this. So that's how it started.
And Mike, how did you get involved in the project?
We know, Corey just mentioned,
I think Corey just mentioned the Ray Romano documentary.
we did that together.
This is how I met Roger, bringing in about
20 years ago.
About 27 hard drives of material
Yeah.
to do a Ray Romano documentary. And of course, we've always just kept, you're newer to me, obviously, but we just kept in contact all those years. And then well, we can get that when that comes up, but then I got involved later after they had started this.
Also, you know, we spent 40 years maybe just going around filming interviews, talking to people, gathering materials, and you and I we cut some stuff together, right? We had like 4 hours of stuff. You know, we had like a thing you could see from beginning to end. It was 4 hours, and you're like, how the hell is this a movie? And also, we were too close to it. So Mike and I had a great relationship. We made an HBO film called 95 Miles to Go, which when I worked on Raymond, and when the show ended, Ray wanted to go back to do stand-up. And so he hired me to produce this film, which was his big return to stand-up comedy, and it was an HBO film. And Mike was just someone who I really connected with during the making of that. He brought a fresh set of eyes to the whole thing and really helped us focus it and narrow it down and turn it into a film, you know? So when we were going through that same situation on this one, I was like, I need Mike. Where's Mike? I need to call Mike. And so Mike looked at everything we had and helped us really, you know, structure it cinematically, you know, and narrow it down. And I think you and I didn't want to be in it. I hate myself, he hates himself, so you hate yourself as much as I hate myself. So
Indeed.
we didn't want to be in it. But I think Mike and a couple of other people said, well, this is kind of your journey as fans, and people need to see it through your point of view. So you were kind of instrumental in
I think I
it.
told you ultimately,
That if you were going to be, as you pursue putting yourself in the film, that it becomes the journey of you two guys searching for this thing. And it is less of the movie that's the whole documentary about everything about He-Man. It's more about what your findings and presentation of that thing. So it became a little more of a documentary, more than just a presentation of the events of the toys and stuff. And I think it changed it into something that's far more reaching than just a normal toy documentary. In that genre, I think it presents itself differently, better, actually.
So who was the first person that you actually interviewed for the film?
Don F. Lute, right? Donald F. Lute was the first person we interviewed, and it was sort of a foretaste of what was to come as far as walking into interesting homes.
into the fright zone?
Into the fright zone. And I mean, he was the guy with King Kong in the background, and pterodactyl and all that stuff. That was just a corner. Yeah, that was his house. And that was just a corner of his room. There were, I believe, 2 stuffed grizzly bears on the other side of the room, and it was just tremendously strange. But he was very nice.
By the way, the other half of that story is 2 years ago maybe, Mattel reached out to us and said, we are in a legal battle with this guy. You have to surrender all the footage of your interview with him. So I had to give Mattel, we had like 2 hours, 3 hours of stuff with Don, and we had to give him that. So, and they won the lawsuit, so I guess it's our fault. So we screwed over Don a little bit.
He does just fine in this.
All right, so what did you originally set out to do with making the documentary, and did the focus ever change during the making of the film?
All the time, right? It changed on a month-to-month basis, I think.
Yeah, I mean, kind of what you see is what we experience. So definitely our point of view changed quite a bit as we talked to different people and heard different stories. We knew we were going to get 2 different sides of the story by talking to Mark and Roger, but what we also got were backups for each of them. And so depending on who we were talking to, there would be a team that was totally backing up this particular point for Roger, and the same thing would happen for Mark. So we definitely ebbed and flowed with our point of view as you sort of saw in the movie. And when we were filming, we had no idea what the movie was going to be. So
We didn't even think it was a movie.
yeah, we were just shooting stuff. So our focus didn't change throughout the course of the filming. The focus definitely changed in the editing process, where we actually decided, well, I think the movie's going to be this, and we just started carving off bits
the things we love about Mass, I really love the section of Filmation. You know, because to us growing up in the 80s, that show was very special. And you know, there's people like Larry and Joe and Lou, who we adore, who we wish was here tonight with us. You know, that was a very important part of our childhood, the Filmation show. So, and there was way more, you know, on the Filmation show on She-Ra, but it felt like it was a very long detour from the story that is driving the narrative, you know. So, but we've saved all that stuff. We have a great deal of footage that whenever we have some kind of a home video release of this thing, you'll see She-Ra there. You know, you'll see the Power Tour, you know, the live-action tour that Gary and Forbes produced, the comic books, you know, the inflatable costumes, you know, these guys that Mattel hired to show up at the shopping centers and at Toys R Us, you know, with inflatable muscle suits, you know, we have that. And Larry Opiella, who was the original He-Man, who just was this really beefed up guy, but he wanted more money. So Mattel said, we're not going to pay you any more money, so then they created the inflatable suits, you know. A bunch of stuff, right? There's a lot more stuff I'm probably forgetting now, but you know, we filmed all that stuff. We wanted to track everyone down and incorporate everyone, but it's difficult. You're making a 90-minute film, and hopefully it's something that appeals to a wider audience than just us He-Man fans, you know.
Now you mentioned that there's a lot of footage that you had to film. You couldn't obviously put everything into the film there. If this comes out on, well, when this comes out on DVD, Blu-ray, you're planning on putting some of this stuff, the extra footage as DVD extras?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've saved everything. That's the idea. Even you know, I was dying to get Scott on camera when we were making the film. So Scott kind of brought back Masters and ran it for, you know, in recent years. But you know, you couldn't do an interview.
Not until I left Mattel.
Oh, he did it at Mattel, yeah. So the moment he left Mattel, he called me and he said, when do you want me to show up? I'm ready for my close-up. So we have a great on-camera conversation with you where you go over the...
You recorded that?
Yeah, we actually were filming that, yeah. So we have a great on-camera conversation about what happened in recent years. If you see the movie, there's just a card that comes up and it says in 2011, what was the year that you guys started?
No, when we launched Classics?
Yeah, when did you launch?
2009.
2009. So you'll see the card that said in 2009, Mattel relaunched Masters of the Universe as a direct-to-the-consumer line. And that's all you see, but you know, we have about an hour of stuff with him about how that all came to be and you know, everything they got to do, you know. So you know, so there's more stuff. By the way, there's a cameo appearance by him that is not in this because we worked on this thing until noon today, you know, to get the closing credits. So there's a cameo appearance by him that you'll see in the final movie.
Yes, I did. I made the movie, but not to the credits.
Yes, so that'll be in the movie. And then when we do the DVD, we will go into Masters Classics, The Power Tour, She-Ra. Great stories with She-Ra, by the way. But you know, we just couldn't get it in.
You've got so much stuff, you could almost make a sequel to this.
By the way, if we can get Roger and Mark in a room together, we have a sequel.
Yeah.
Just mud wrestling.
Yeah!
Yeah, that's all I want.
Yeah.
right there.
Would you guys like to see a film with Roger and Mark both in the same room?
And mud wrestling. That was the aim, by the way. We've seen a film, I don't know if anyone's seen a film called Winnebago Man that came out a few years ago, and the journey of that film is similar to what we were hoping to achieve by getting Roger to come out and meet his fans and get to understand that this was larger than one person, you know, and for lack of a better term, bask in the glory of the group experience, but, you know, never happened. We still email him to this day, and he doesn't, you know, write back.
So you're emailing him, but no, he won't email back. So, making this film, what surprised you the most as you dug deeper into the world of He-Man?
I guess what surprised me most was just all the Mattel bullshit. That it was just completely filled with, it seemed like present companies flew to just a bunch of weasels. You know, the fact that the way that they killed the line to try to get the bonuses is just the epitome of the kind of garbage that they were sort of dealing with, and it's just...
It's the 80s, come on.
It's the 80s. I'm surprised Joe Morrison wasn't doing coke on film with us, you know. But no, I mean, just that dichotomy of people like Mark Taylor who were creative people who were really talented, just trying to do stuff, and then you just sort of the fluff attitude of, yeah, we did this, yeah, we inflated this, we knew exactly what we were doing, shipped a bunch of products, and yeah, but I mean,
But we got our bonuses.
we got our bonuses. So the thing that my answer, the thing that surprised me most was just the depths of the darkness in the toy world.
Now, the film ended, at the end of the film you say that you feel that no one was really lying about who created He-Man, that you felt that everybody was telling the truth, or at least their own version of the truth, that you felt that everyone had a hand in making the property. After finishing the film and everything, do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, we had an interesting, I mean, maybe you mentioned this in a way, where we would go to an interview and we'd have a conversation with someone and then we'd leave the interview and we'd go, well, that's it. That's how it happened. You know, that's the answer right there. A week later, we'd go to another interview and someone would say something and we'd be like, well, we were wrong last week. This is the guy, you know, this is how it happened, you know, and then a month later, we'd go through the same thing. You know, but at the point where we actually had a film and a narrative, we realized it's ridiculous to think that this would have happened without the group effort. And by the way, the company, Mattel, funding all of it, you know, driving it. You look back and you go at, you know, the success Kenner had with Star Wars, and that being the fire that drove Mattel to get a, you know, successful boys line to the market. You know, all these things affected it. You know, it wasn't just like Joe Morrison said. It wasn't like abracadabra. Here's He-Man and it's a hit. You know, it just doesn't happen like that. You know, so it's a group effort. You know, granted there were certain things that Mark was responsible for. There's certain things that you can't deny that Roger was very involved with at the beginning. You know, as that preliminary kind of idea guy. But you know, the He-Man we know and love, and the Masters mythology and the franchise that we kind of obsessed over as kids, and to this day, you know, that's a group effort. It's a simple fact. It's a group effort.
Now, of the people you interviewed in the film, who was your favorite person that you interviewed and why?
Who's here?
Larry Natilio.
Larry Natilio was my...
No, but this was great, because we were fans of all of these people. You know, Larry wrote on Captain Power, which was one of my favorite things ever as a kid, you know. So I got to meet Larry, I got to meet Joe Straczynski, you know. You know, Roger was a very interesting guy, you know, even though we had some difficulties with him, you know, we really got along with him quite well, so it was kind of disappointing and a little heartbreaking that we can't be in touch with him anymore. Mark was one of the sweetest guys. He and his wife treated us beautifully, and Ted Mayer, you know, so it's this interesting scenario of having grown up loving something that these people were responsible for, and then actually getting to know them and spend time with them and, you know, understand the process they went through.
I'll say, I mean, everybody that we talked to was fascinating and nice and surprisingly open and fascinating, but my favorite person to talk to was Shimer. Because of, I mean, he had Parkinson's at the time, but it had nothing to do, his filter was not affected by that, it was just a physical thing, you could see him sort of shaking. But his being unfiltered was just vintage Lou Shimer, and that's why I enjoy talking to him so much, because he was just completely open and also just completely lovely. So I just thought he was tremendously entertaining and great.
I mean, that may be the last interview we have with Lou ever.
Yeah.
That was so...
Yeah.
Larry, do you want to say anything about Luke? Because we certainly miss him. He was amazing.
Well, I think I did a eulogy for him in the Comic-Con book.
The program book that came out that year, yeah.
And basically, I said everything I had to say about him in that. So, I mean, he just was a wonderful man to work for. He really was. You know, he'd tell you exactly what he thought, you know, and he'd tell the people at Mattel exactly what he thought. You know, he said everything on it.
So what you see on screen with Lou, that's kind of how it went.
That's it. And that's exactly it. And no toy company ever made such a contract again. That's a fact.
And, Scott, actually, your last year working with Mattel, you actually dedicated a toy to Lou the last year with the Hordak.
Yeah, yes, the Federation Hordak we did. Yeah, just, I mean, always very tricky using anyone's name. Like in, at the last shot, we were showing the Vigon figure that we did for the 30th, and, not mentioning Roger Sweet's name or anything like that officially. And, of course, would have loved to do that kind of stuff throughout the line. We did a Vicor figure that was based on, Taylor's drawing and Demo Man and all that kind of stuff. But I think because when Lou passed away, and then we were doing a comic or a filmation version for that for the show in San Diego, it just felt like the right time to do that. And luckily I was able to convince Mattel that to put his name on a package like that.
Yeah, they were not happy with
They were never easy to get people's names on packages.
They were kind of on, Gary's movie was the last effort to get the line up and running again. I think it had been $400 million in sales in '86, and then in '87 went down to $7 million. So just Mattel kind of started removing masters from the marketplace.
Yeah, and I wasn't even aware that the 90s, the new era was even in existence. So I think a lot of it has to do with just boys growing up. I got to a certain point where I sold my stuff at garage sales because I wanted to grow up and I thought it wasn't cool to have these anymore. So I know. And obviously, I wish I had them today, but I think I grew out of it because I was trying to make myself grow out of it and just grow up.
Any more questions from the audience?
Yes.
I have a few questions. The Toy Masters documentary, when will it be sell? And the second question is, if you had to choose between the 1980s filmation He-Man versus the Mike Young This for All Town, this question, which would you choose?
We're working on getting the movie out there. We have no idea when it's going to be for sale, but we hope it's going to be very soon. It's a process, so I don't have an answer, a definitive date, but soon.
You can buy the soundtrack tonight.
You can buy the soundtrack. Brandon Moore is selling his score, which is great. I like them both for different reasons. I think that Mike Young is a little bit truer to the spirit of what the toys were, but I just, I didn't go home and watch Mike Young every day for 5 days, after school. So I
Kind of pride.
yeah. Well, you're from Puerto Rico. You want to answer?
No, it's the same thing with you. The original Lou's show was something I grew up with. It's a huge part of my childhood, But you look at the stuff that Larry and Dean and all the other guys got to do during the Mike Young era, and that stuff is really great storytelling. They got to do origin stories. That opener, that 3-parter, the 90-minute TV movie you guys did, that's the origin of He-Man there. We never got to see that on the old show. So from a storytelling point of view, it's really rich what they got to do, But the original is still what we grew up with, So.
I love the spirit of the Filmation series. Filmation series because what's featured in the film is something I just think is really magical. The idea that the animation, you could criticize it from a outside point of view, but then when you hear the story about keeping it in Lou Scheimer, keeping the animation in America, and that's why you did recycled animation stuff, there's something really endearing about everything that guy was involved in. And even to just sort of add with this is the connective tissue in between a lot of these interview bites and stuff that you have, where they could just be black holes, and trying to make every animation that was in there. So in the spirit of Lou Scheimer, I would recycle some of the animation and run them backwards. And I'll say I did that too, as a nod to Lou Scheimer. The reality is it's to save time. That's a lot of animations. And then to keep some of that together too, I have to add you into this too, Brandon. It's to keep some of the spirit of everything you were seeing. It is what I call a talkumentary. There's a lot of talking heads, and unlike a movie like King of Kong or something where you would follow a character around throughout his day, it's in this interview sort of setup, and so music and timing becomes so integral in keeping everyone's attention, and I think that for doing that it becomes successful. Thank you to you. Yeah. You have a comment on that?
Do I have a comment on this? Oh, no.
Just say yes.
Oh, yes, I have a comment. No, I don't.
Brandon, what's your favorite?
I like the music.
Okay.
I like the drawings. Who did those drawings?
A friend of mine named Philip Purcell.
Yeah, it goes to that kind of like, the toys were on the market for 3 years before it ever went to TV. So there was something there that held kids together. I mean, they didn't discover it when the TV came on. They had them already. You know, they had the toys. And now they were seeing the toy. I could get me in a room with Roger Sweet. I could tell him I created He-Man. Because I breathed life into him, gave him stories he could do, and they didn't have to make up their own stories. You know, you always do when you're a kid. You know, you can do it. I did.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that what we love about Masters and what's so endearing and why we're still, fans, it's everything that happened because of the group coming together, because of the action figures, because of the work you guys did on the animated show. Even Gary's film. Gary's film was very special for me. I saw that film on opening day. I was 6 years old, I think, so it blew me away. So that kind of tapestry of all of it coming together is what makes Masters special. It's not just one thing, at least for me.
It's like a band, you can't just throw away a member of the band and make it still work. And obviously there are pieces that continue on like you.
Exactly.
Okay, we have,
Michael Halbert also.
yes,
Also wrote for My Chemical.
yes, at the back.
Yeah, I just want to commend you guys for how thorough you were in terms of the number and varied types of people you've got to interview and to put on film and to follow the whole story. It did remind me, it had the kind of power and the weight of Who Killed Your Electric Car or something along those lines of a more corporate expose. But just a quick question. Having done this movie, did it increase your childhood passion and interest in the subject, or did it decrease it, having gone through that kind of quagmire?
First, thanks for saying those nice things. Yeah, I think it was all plus side for me because we got to hang out in this world for a little bit longer, and we had an excuse to. It's like, we have to go to Comic-Con because we have to promote this movie. No, I have to buy this toy. We have to get tickets. Yeah.
I have to watch it.
Yeah, so it was all positive for me.
I'm so He-Man out. I had to watch this thing like a million times while I was composing, but no. I enjoyed it a lot. The original He-Man's my favorite stuff.
I think the picture's good. That criticism, I think, is a little criticism.
Even watching it now, especially the Filmation stuff, because as I was saying before, it was such a special era for me growing up, I get very nostalgic watching it. I don't feel like, we went for 4 years to put this thing together. Yeah. It just feels special, So the journey didn't really affect it in any negative way.
Okay, and we have time for just one more question. Yes.
Did Roger Sweet say anything about when you finally made the Necron figure?
Oh, what's the question?
No. He had, stopped talking to us, but I didn't stop talking to him. So I would just send emails out into the ether. And especially when the Vicron thing was released, I was like, well, Roger should know about this. This is kind of interesting. Maybe this will bring him back to life, and just nothing.
By the way, something about Rob, because we did, he didn't write back to us anymore, but when we were actually communicating with him, every couple of months, a very thick manila envelope would show up in my office from Roger Sweet, and it was like, legal documents in a way. It was Exhibit A. Everything relating to the coming up with the name He-Man, going back to Megaton Man, going to all these things. Then a couple months later, a bunch of pieces of artwork. He would send these envelopes to the office every few months. I have a binder like this thick with all the stuff he sent. So he was definitely.
If he ever grows a beard and lives in a shed in the woods, this is going to be the manifesto.
All right, guys. Any final comments about the film before we wrap?
I have some.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was saying, we were talking about this today, that I think watching this is this kind of sociological or psychological experiment that where people are in their life ends up being, and that's why I like what you said about the beginning, it finds out where you are and who you side with in the movie tells us a lot about where you're at in your life. And so if I ask to raise hands, how many people here think that credit would go to like Roger Sweet? How many? This guy.
All right.
How many think that like Mark Taylor? And then we can go to the rest. Paul Cleveland, Lou Scheimer, you start throwing that in. And each time you would see this, it becomes like a water cooler moment that the next day, like you started talking about that, and you find things to oppose and things not to oppose, and start strengthening that whole idea. And that's why I think is one of the successes of this.
Just out of curiosity, or how many of you in the audience feel that this was a team effort at Mattel?
Case closed.
The case is closed. We were a team.
Depending on the percentages.
All right, guys. Well, listen. Thank you so much for